Detailed case summary. Foakes v. Beer, 1884, is a landmark decision in English contract law that addresses the issue of whether part payment of a debt can be considered valid consideration to discharge the entire debt. The case emphasizes the doctrine of consideration and its application in agreements to pay less than the amount owed. Background facts. Claimant plaintiff, Dr. Foakes. Defendant, Julia Beer. Background facts. Dr. Foakes owed Julia Beer £2,090.19 after court judgment in her favour. Dr. Foakes and Ms. Beer agreed that if Dr. Foakes paid £500 immediately and the rest in instalments, Ms. Beer would not take any further action on the judgment. Dr. Foakes fulfilled this agreement, paying the full amount in instalments. However, Ms. Beer later demanded interest on the debt which had accrued according to the judgment, despite the agreement. Argument in the court case. Plaintiff's argument. Dr. Foakes argued that the agreement to pay the debt in installments without further action constituted full settlement of the debt, including any interest. He maintained that by paying the principal amount as agreed, he had fulfilled his obligations and should not be liable for additional interest. Defendant's argument. Ms. Beer contended that the agreement did not preclude her from claiming interest on the debt, which was legally due under the original judgment. She argued that since there was no new consideration for her agreement to forego the interest, the original obligation to pay interest remained enforceable. Final outcome and legal justification. Final outcome. The House of Lords ruled in favour of Ms. Beer, holding that the agreement to accept part payment of the debt did not constitute sufficient consideration to discharge the entire debt, including the interest. Therefore, Dr. Foakes was liable to pay the accrued interest. Legal justification. The court's decision was based on the principle that a promise to accept part payment of an existing debt cannot discharge the debtor from the remaining balance unless there is fresh consideration. The ruling reaffirmed the doctrine of consideration, emphasizing that a promise to do something one is already legally obligated to do is not good consideration. In this case, Dr. Foakes's part payment of the debt did not provide any additional benefit to Ms. Beer beyond what she was already entitled to under the original judgment, and thus did not satisfy the requirement for fresh consideration. Key concept. The implication of the Foakes v. Beer 1884 case is significant for the understanding of consideration in contract law. The case establishes that part payment of a debt is not sufficient consideration to discharge the entire debt unless there is some new benefit or detriment involved. Key learnings. Legal practitioners should be aware that agreements to accept part payment of debts need fresh consideration to be enforceable. Creditors must understand that accepting part payment without additional consideration does not legally bind them to forego the remaining balance or any interest due. The case highlights the rigidity of the doctrine of consideration and the necessity for clear mutual benefits or detriments in contractual agreements.